This is The Express with Gary Allen, your 360-degree view of the world. Now, here's your host, Gary Allen.
And good evening to everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Express. This is indeed Gary Allen, or as my mother would say every October 25th, it's the birthday boy. So, yes, today I turned 64 years old. And before I go very far, I want to say hello to Randy out there. Thank you so much. And to all of you for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us here on The Express. Before I get into tonight's guest, which is always a treat to have this young lady on board the program. For those of you that want to keep track of what I'm doing, where I am at, you can go to facebook.com and go to Gary Allen, A-L-A-N. And if you also want to go on over and listen to any of our past shows like tonight's show, will be on my YouTube channel, youtube.com, Gary Allen, A-L-A-N, The Express Interviews. And Thursday night at 7 p.m. on our sister station, the show repeats itself on diversitybroadcastnetwork.com, as well as with my good friend Mr. John and Mr. George at progressivevoices.com. For those of you that are interested not only in this show, but the network shows, you can go to tunein.com and go to TMV Cafe, and you'll be able to hear all the shows that are on this network if you don't want to necessarily go on your computer. Before we get into tonight's guest, and I know she's awaiting me, and we're going to get into her fabulous and wonderful weekend. Let me just say this, that this is one of my dearest friends. Fran Capo is a motivational speaker, comedian, adventurer, ordained minister, which is kind of cool. 9-time author, spokesperson, consultant, 6-time world record holder, most known as the Guinness Book of World Records fastest talking woman. I can't do it because I'll run out of breath. She has also appeared on over 4,500 radio shows, 450 TV shows, including the Meredith Vieira Show, Entertainment Tonight, Nick at Night, Good Morning America, and I could go on and on and on. The last time Fran joined us, we were talking about, as well as the first time she joined us, Hopeville, the City of Light, and she's going to bring us up to speed as to some of the new stuff that's going on with the book. But tonight she's here to talk to us about 2 new books that she's written, or 2 companion books that corporations and small businesses are loving. The humor approach, for those of you that always want to put a little touch, a spark of humor into if your speeches or if you have to speak in front of a group of people, this is a book for you. And the ultimate guide to getting yourself on radio, television, and in print. These are practical guides for those who do both public speaking and who want to market their products as well as themselves. I would like to introduce to all of you who have never heard this young lady speak before, the blushing bride herself, Miss Fran Capo. Fran, darling, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well,
thank you for that wonderful, wonderful intro.
Well, listen, you know that you and a certain other young lady that's a really good friend of yours are 2 people that I love very, very much. And before I go very far, Miss Vicki Rossman said to say hello.
Please say hello back to her. And I will also tell Jeanette Barber, who you were referring to, that you say hi also.
Yes, I always do. So, all right, before we get into tonight's show, how was the wedding? And you were together with this guy forever. So is there any feeling other than now it's legal?
It's funny because it's like walk around, he goes, "Hi, wife, how you doing? Hi, husband, doing fine." It's like almost like a joke we're saying it, but I'm like going, right now it's only been 2 days, so it hasn't felt much different. We didn't even hand the paper in yet, so technically, I mean, we were married in front of the eyes of everybody. It's like, we got to get the paperwork in now. So, nothing's really changed yet, except that we know that after 16 years, we still were willing to do a commitment. But the thing was, after all that time, we had said, you know what are we waiting for? I think we know each other well, and so we decided that, instead of waiting for like the spring, do it now. So it was funny because when I called the place Mohawk, which is where we decided to do it, I was like, God, do you have October 23rd open? And then they were like, October 23rd, 2017. I said, no, October 23rd, like in 5 weeks. And they were like, really? I was like, yeah. So people were like, 5 weeks? Well, people take like a year to plan it. I was like, oh, you know what? How, you get a florist, a minister, a photographer, videographer, a DJ. But then I said, well, I'm not good at having weddings just like regular. So I called the place. I go, if I could get like a hot air balloon coming in. She's like, ma'am, no one's asking. I said, what about 2 llamas? One dressed as a bride and groom. She's like, no, we cannot have animals on the property. So then I was like, how about if I come in a helicopter with like a ladder coming down and I swing down? And she's like, yeah, that would blow all the guests away. I'm like, all right, I guess we got something else. So I was talking to my now husband, which sounds weird even saying that the first time on the air. So I was talking to my husband, and then he said, I have this great idea for an entrance, because I was like, we got to think of something funny. We can't just, come up the aisle.
Right.
He said, look, a friend of mine is NYPD. He goes, how about I come in handcuffs, and I'll run, like, because it was an outdoor wedding. And then he catches me and puts me by the altar. And so then we started unfolding this like whole plan of like, all right, where would you hide? The cop's got to wear a raincoat so nobody sees him that he's a cop bringing you up there. And then then I had one friend who was a minister, a regular minister, and then I had another friend whose performance name is Throdini. And he's the world's fastest and most accurate knife thrower, but he also holds a record of getting people out of handcuffs and the fastest with a bobby pin. So we said, well, if you're our minister and he's in the handcuffs, how about I come up in a golf cart and I say, I have the key that can let you out. He says, all right, come do it. And I go, nah, stay there. Then I come up the aisle. I go to let him out of the handcuffs, except my key doesn't work. So you ask for a bobby pin from the people in the audience. Then they give you the bobby pin. You let him out. Then we hand it to the cop and we go, all right, now we'll proceed. So that was how we opened up our wedding. And then we decided, well, we don't want to say the regular vows. We need heartfelt vows. So like my vows had things in it like, I'll cook breakfast for you. I mean, I'll cook dinner for you twice a week. I promise to give you a back rub. I mean, we just had like real things that we would do in there. I love you more than all my adventures. I mean, we just made it so like personal. So then I also, because it was outdoors, I had hand warmers for people and bubbles. And then another friend of mine's a cartoonist, created a cover. And then when we came into the reception, now for the first time as Mr. and Mrs., when we came into the reception, we decided that, okay, instead of just coming in, we'll do the whole thing. Why don't we have it where we pretend that we give out life insurance policies against each other and that we hired a hitman, and the hitman is really the minister, and we're going to see what winds up happening. So then we did that, and then he revealed a knife throwing board, put us against the knife throwing board, threw the knives at us, and we said, all right, now that we survived, let's do the first dance. And then we did the first dance, and then my son, did a toast, and then I did a blessing. And then, of course, everybody's thinking like, okay, maybe that's it. And I had table trivia where people had to know answers about me and Steve. And then we decided, oh, well, you know what? Maybe I'll have a friend of mine, George Bettinger, do some impersonations. And I had another friend of mine, Nancy Lombardo. She came in, barged in as a nun, pretending she was trying to stop the wedding because he was Jewish and I was Catholic, but it was too late. And then we ended it with another friend of mine, Gemini, who's a ventriloquist, who put a mask on Steve, making him talk. And then after that, we had a friend of mine do spoon bending. We played a prank on all the staff, and we substituted the spoons with bent spoons. And then it was a normal wedding from there on in.
Really, a normal wedding. I'm going to repeat this to Vicki, but I knew that there was not normalcy going on Saturday wherever you were getting married, because that would be so arbitrary to who you are. And for Steve, and for you to tell Steve that you love him more than any of your adventures, considering some of the things you've done, is really saying. And Steve's a great guy. I mean, to both of you are wonderful people. I love you dearly, as I do a certain friend of yours who I love with all my heart. Fran, and bring us up to date on Hopeville. I know that there's some new things going on with the book and great
Oh,
things.
God,
Tell us what's
yes.
happening.
It's so exciting because last time I spoke to you, I think I had just gotten the CD version. I'm not sure if Hopeville had already come out in CD format, because people said, what about people who want to listen to it, want to hear the voice, don't have time to read? So it came out in a CD version. Then someone said, well, Hopeville is about lighting someone else's candle in the sense of, lighting their spirit. So then somebody else, Johnny Rizzo, a comic who I know designs candles, said, Fran, I love to design a candle for you. Instead of me being an ordained minister, I put a prayer in the back of the candle. So that being said, I don't know if I had told you last time that I partnered with this guy, Eric Wilson from JTC Exchange, and he has a program that gives kids, it's like anti-bullying, teen self-esteem, and women power for young women, and to help prisoners so that when they come out, they don't go back to that same type of lifestyle. And so we started talking, and then we said, well, why don't we get sponsorship to get Hopeville into the hands of the kids in the schools and to the prisons? And now we're doing a whole thing about pizza with policemen and building up rapport in the neighborhoods with that, all providing books, these Hopeville books that talk about, love, compassion, building your dream, and not the proper, but the 44 lessons of life on how to do, how to keep, just how to live a life that makes it full for people. Right. And not only that, will you follow you. So what's been happening is I've been asked to come into not only, schools to talk, but I've been asked the weirdest places. Like, this lady Giselle heard me speak at a church, and she was like, do you want to come to my salon and perform? So I'm like, oh, what do you mean salon? Like a big spa? She says, I have a hair salon. It has 4 chairs in it. But, the people there are just really good, people, and they're kind and care. And I said, well, how many people can you get in a salon? And then she was like, no, we give. So she got a small group of women, or not only women, but she got a small group of people there. And they raised in just that little, that little 1-hour talk that I did for them, $700 worth of sponsored books. So those books then went back out to the schools, and then another salon asked me to do it. And it's like this little movements that are growing all around, in addition to the places like Miller Coors and Pfizer and, big companies like that have been ordering it for their CEOs. So what's happening is the book is got kind of like a grassroots movement of people donating money. I autograph the books. I then take the books and, they sponsor it. And the books get donated to these places. And kids and teachers are telling me that the book is having a huge impact on the way people are viewing each other and the type of relationships that are developing. And this is all joined with JTC, which has joined the conversation, meaning if you're going to have a conversation, make it a good one. And then people are doing these 44 lessons, and it's just awesome how people are saying that it's making them feel so good. So that's the latest update on Hopeville.
I mean, it is a great book. We're talking to Fran Capo. I don't know. You have so many different. I didn't even know you were an ordained minister. But before you answer that, has anybody approached you about putting together either a musical or a play of Hopeville?
Yes, actually, I had 2 people approach me to do an independent film, on Hopeville. But my thing was, I said, I really want to build it up where, people around, get it like around the world. Oh, wait a minute. I can't believe the latest thing was I was at a healers weekend for this guy, Ken Kobayashi, who's building a meditation center. And there were a lot of Japanese people that had come in. And we started talking, and one lady actually came up to me, and we started talking. I was talking about the book Hopeville. Anyway, she's on the plane home to Japan. Turns out she's a translator. She read it. She writes back to me, I would like to translate this book for the Japanese people. I feel that they would totally like. So right now, we're in negotiations with her, translating and getting a publisher. That's what we're looking for a publisher there, because obviously we have the publisher here, but not there. Right. And she's translating it into Japanese because she says that she got chills when she read it, and that it made her cry as she read it because she felt the divine guidance in the book.
Well, I told you that I loved the book. I just, I took a whole Sunday afternoon and just read the book. Didn't even watch football. I mean, this was back when
which is a huge compliment. Yeah,
because me and sports. There's one thing that I've been wanting to say to you for the longest period of time, and that is, do you realize that you are a teacher? Besides all the other wonderful qualities that you have, everything that you do leads up to a lesson of life, or a lesson that we can all take from that. If someone's feeling a little down, or they don't think for the last 5 years their career is going anywhere, to take a look at you and how hard you work. And ladies and gentlemen, Fran Capo works her behind off to get where she is, which would explain these next two books that we're going to talk about. But do you realize that you are a teacher in a sense of everything that you do?
Well, I guess I don't look at myself that way. I kind of look, I guess I think I'm more of a motivator, but I guess that does teach. In my way, it's just like I just feel like people can learn if you live the life you're telling people to live. And if you can't say to someone, oh, nothing is impossible if you don't live that way. Or you can't say to someone like, you need to have a good relationship with your kids, and meanwhile, you and your kids don't communicate. So I just say, if I'm telling anybody to do anything, I have to do it and show them that I'm just a regular person. If it's possible for me, it's possible for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about these two companion books, these wonderful books that you have come up with. I enjoyed reading the second one, The Ultimate Guide, but I want to first talk about the humor approach, putting your funny side up. I remember back in the days of school, Fran, that the teachers that I learned from the most, and I had one social science teacher. His name was Frank Curley. His sister was Baby Rosemary on the Dick Van Dyke Show. And
wow. How cool.
And I learned more from him and other teachers and professors and people in general, even on television, if they do it with a kind of a sense of humor, storytelling. I learned how to give discussions and stuff in high school if I was talking about something, a speech or whatever, to make it into a story, something relevant that maybe is within my lifespan. And I just love the fact of the approach that you take with this book. And on the back page of it, you say, if you're a teacher, entertainer, corporate executive, politician, I know one that could sure use this a little bit of humor, salesman, lawyer, fundraiser, lecturer, student, or put it in this way, if you ever need to get up in front of an audience, you need this book. And it's true. I think, you and I have both gone to corporate events. We've both worked corporate events, and there's nothing more boring than the black and white stats and the bullet points and everything else. And very few of these people in the corporate world really have a sense of humor, except after they've got a couple of belts in them. And I don't mean the ones that they wear.
Right.
So was your approach that you, in writing this book, that you take what you do as a stand-up comic, and you're one of the best in the business, and say, if you start to tell a few jokes and make your speeches and conference calls and everything maybe a little more humorous, people will learn and accept and understand what it is you're trying to do?
Yes. Well, this is the thing. When you look at things logically, for example, let's look at, all right, actually today, I got married on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Today, unfortunately, I was at 2 funerals. And I went to the first funeral, and it was, it was very moving. People were very, heartfelt, but they were very serious because they were, very heartfelt. I went to the second funeral, which happened to be the funeral of, unfortunately, of Kevin Meaney, the comedian Kevin Meaney.
I didn't know that he'd passed away. Vicki mentioned it to me today, and I felt so bad. At first, I didn't remember Kevin, and it's only because lately I've been busier than a one-eyed man in a burlesque house. But it is so sad when one of our people die, and he's so
at
young.
Such a young age.
Yes,
exactly. And he was so talented, and so there he is, and the priest goes up, and he says, "Well, I know Kevin for this long," and he starts telling a story, and here we all are at his funeral, and he tells this story that everybody just starts laughing. Now, nobody's laughing, of course, at Kevin. They're laughing at what Kevin would have wanted, the situation, not the situation of course, his passing, but the priest telling a story about what Kevin did. And, you know what I mean? And so we're all laughing at a moment in life, which is the reason that everybody was there to celebrate his life, even though, unfortunately, it was cut way too short.
Yes.
And then when you think about the commercials, you watch TV, which ones do you remember during the Super Bowl? The ones that have humor in it. Oh, did you see that commercial with the, whatever, and then you name the thing. Or, when somebody gets up and does a talk, anybody can get out. Think of even, let's think church-wise also. Joel Osteen starts out his sermon where he's got thousands of people by opening up with a joke. And the guy is loved all around the world.
And by the way, most of his jokes are throwaways that you and I probably used on stage years ago.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's not like he's, writing a new material. I mean, he's just saying a joke, but it changes the atmosphere.
Yes, it does.
There is something very relieving and uplifting about humor. And that's why people are like, oh, my God, I can't believe your wedding was like this. These things. I said, you know what, this is who Steve and I are. Now, Steve's not a stand-up. He's a regular businessman, but obviously he's, funny. And it was weird because he's very quiet when he meets people. But then, I know him from, the home and, him joking. And they were like, I saw Steve say more and act out more, and he's really got timing and, him running around in the handcuffs. And I said, and it makes it memorable. I mean, who opens it up? And we opened it up to the song Bad Boys, by Cops.
Yeah.
And, and so everything we did, we said, this is who we are. People are coming here to celebrate. Why does it have to be the same old, all right, you go there, you eat, you dance, you watch people dance, you throw the garter, throw the bouquet, all right, go home. You might as well just cut out figures, put our head in there, and it could be anybody's wedding. So when I wrote this book, I wanted to give people who maybe, are scared to do humor because they're like, well, no, but this is a serious, topic. Well, yeah, you could be serious. I mean, you can't, you have to be solemn about it. You could still be serious. We were still upset that Kevin died. Joel was still giving a message about God. I was still getting married and meant every one of my vows, but it doesn't, hurt to have the humor in it. So what I did was I broke it up into showing people, how do you know your audience, the benefits of humor,
yes.
How do you know if a joke works? I mean, it goes into such detail, the rule of, 3, timing, the correct order of a joke, funny words, like certain words, sound funnier than others. What's your comic persona? Joan Rivers is different than Rodney Dangerfield, different than CK. Each person is there. Your body language on stage, your emphasis and your punch. Then I go into how to write a joke, everything from switching, exaggeration, reverse jokes, puns, how to not step in a line, how to do improv, how to personalize it. Like, you're doing the same routine and you're in,
Right.
Bodunk, Iowa, and then you go out to California. Well, personalize. Hey, I was just, at the train station, in Madagascar. You name the place you were just at,
Right.
and you're not doing a stand-up routine, but how much humor is need to be used, and 3 jokes per 20 minutes is 3 jokes per minute, at the beginning, middle, and end. How do you get the opening joke? And also talking about that humor is not just joke telling. It's not just you tell a joke, you move on, because the famous thing: you can open a funny door, or you can open a door funny.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what way, what style. And then I just talk about exercises to do to get your creative juices flowing. And so but the funny thing about this book, and I don't mean the funny, ha-ha funny,
Mm-hmm.
I mean although I could mean that too, but the thing with the humor approach is I had gotten asked, Barnes & Noble was doing this festival where simultaneously, for a period of 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
they had every Barnes & Noble doing a talk, and it was like their biggest push, and it was aimed towards teens to get them to read more. So they thought having a comedy panel would be good. So I said, oh, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Hey, can I talk about my book, Hopeville? And they were like, is Hopeville funny? As well? No, it's more of a parable. It's more of a spiritual book. And then they said, too bad you don't have a book on humor. I said, well, I mean, I do have a book on humor that I wrote a while ago, but, I mean, I haven't updated it. And then I was like, you know what? I could totally update it. I said, I have 2 weeks. I could redo the book. And then they were like, redo the book? I said, yeah, I could redo the book. I could modernize it. I could get it up to speed. So I took the book. The book that I had was a workbook, not a regular book. It was a book like when I would teach humor that I would use.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it, I wrote it 2 weeks, got someone to design a cover, got an ISBN, got it into Barnes & Noble system, and I'm over there on the day of the panel, I'm talking, and the book is there, and they were selling the book. And someone over here hears me talking, saying that I did it in 2 weeks. And she comes up to me, this lady, Laura Banks, who I know from, working with, she's an actress, but she also, does a lot of things. She goes, hey, I'm going out to Vegas. And a lot of people there, have products, but they don't know how to get them on radio and television and in print. She goes, how about you and I write a book in 2 weeks? Now, she's an author who herself worked on a book with Jeanette Barber, actually, and they wrote a best-selling book. And I said, Laura, that books, take a long time. So I outlined everything that had to be done in the 2 weeks. And she goes, how about you write it and I sell it? I was like, okay. So I said, this is not the habit I want to be in, but then I turned around and wrote the ultimate guide to getting yourself on, radio, television, and print. And I figured, make them companion books, because the way to get invited back as a guest is to be an entertaining guest. Well, how do you do that? You use humor. So if you read the humor book, know how to, present that in the different mediums, and then you take what you can learn by being on radio, television, and print, and describing everything from your press release to, how to get the hook and brainstorm and the words that sell and how to get the TV people interested in you, and then talking about the different elements of the press kit and how it's different to, do something on radio versus TV versus print, and how you prepare for each type of show differently. So, I go into real detail, everything from what you wear on television to what the producer's going to ask you to, like, even when you and I were getting this together, what I had to send you so you could send out press to let people know about me, from introductions, if I'm in, crosstalk, FCC regulations, and on and on and on. So those are the 2 new books. And what's happening is I see a couple of people that bought the book initially had called me and said, I wasn't even halfway through with your book, and I used some of the principles, and within 1 week I got myself on a local television show.
That's fabulous.
It was this guy, Tom Ritter.
We're talking to Fran Capo, the author of Humor Approach, Putting Your Funny Side Up, as well as the ultimate guide to getting yourself on television, radio, and in print. And in my case, you want to eliminate the print immediately, but you can go ahead with the radio. Television, you don't want me in front of either. I love
print could be content, you know, on the internet.
Yeah, but you know me with my dyslexia. I can't go 2 words without having to look it up. Did I spell it correctly? Thank God computers have spell check. I mean, thank you for
that's why you're so perfect on radio. You're very fluent. You're a great host. So radio is a great medium for you.
Oh, it really is. I've always loved doing radio. You know, I've always said radio to me was like when we were growing up as kids, reading a book. Now, you can read a book and it'll say a car driving in front of your house. Well, if you see it on television or a movie, you see that it's a red car. You see the house, you see the street. When you're reading it, you can imagine any car you want, any street you want, what your house looks like, and evolves. Your imagination evolves as you're reading, and it develops that sense of wonder about yourself. And I've always loved books, and I've always loved radio. It's just, you know, my way. And believe it or not, I actually wanted to be an actor, but thank God that didn't happen. I mean, really, thank God it didn't happen. Now, I'm hoping you're going to PDF me or the Humor Approach book, because I do have the ultimate guide on PDF, and I was reading it like crazy over the weekend and going through it. And we're going to do that here in just a little bit, go through that very much. And by the way, for those of you, the Hopeville, the City of Light, is number 11 on Amazon. And where else can they get your books, too, besides on Amazon, Fran?
Well, it's actually the Hopeville book is in ebook format. It's in softcover format, and it's in and it's through my website. All my books you can get at my website, which is the easiest way if you also want it autographed, which is francapo.com. But Hopeville, because people do donations to get into place, has its own website, although you could reach it from francapo.com, but it's Hopeville, the cityoflight.com. Hopeville is available, you know, through iTunes, through Sony, the Sony Nook, and through Amazon. And the Ultimate Guide and the Humor Approach are right now only available at my website because I'm gearing them towards corporations, so I'm keeping them where, you know, when the corporations are looking for me, they find the books.
Oh, okay. By the way, did you save me a piece of cake?
Yes, I actually have the whole top row, and of course we're not traditional. So besides the fact that it was gluten-free but still delicious, they say, save the cake for a year and then you eat it on your anniversary. I'm like, it never tastes good that way. So why should we wait? So yes, we have it, and we said we're going to eat. Me and Steve said the other day, we went, are we really going to wait a year? We go, no, it's going to taste so nasty. No. So we're like, let's enjoy it now while it's nice and fresh.
You can always in a year get the same cake again.
Yeah, true, but it's not the same exact cake. I'm a purist. No. It has to be the actual cake. And even the cake was different because the cake we had divided in half. So one half is a girl scaling a mountain with ropes, and the other half is a guy. Yes, of course. And the guy riding up on a motorcycle on the other side, and at the top is the motorcycle with both of us on it and the words "finally."
Well, the thing is, the missing, though, is you down in a submarine at the Titanic. I think that's the one that I was kind of expecting to hear.
Yeah, well, I guess I could have done that, but I was trying to do like we're both going towards the top, and then we together run. Yeah.
You know, the last time you were on, and before we get into the book, The Ultimate Guide of Getting Yourself on Television and Radio and Print, we're talking to Fran Capo, one of my dear friends in the whole wide world who I love dearly, and do give my true love, Jeanette, my best. Would you please, when you do see and talk to her?
Yes, I did say that at the wedding. I told her that, yes.
Oh, what did she say back? Oh, him?
She was like, who? No. She actually, she said, oh, I love him. She goes, I've done a show a bunch of times. I'm like, yes, I know.
I wish I could get her on again, but she's so busy with that production that she's doing. I can't get her, she's very, very, very busy. The last time you were on, we talked about, and you're not going to get into the story, but a friend of mine called me up after listening to the show the next day, and he couldn't stop laughing about the story about you going down in the Titanic. And he said, he said, Gary, how would you do? I said, not good. Number one, I'm claustrophobic. And number two, I have a very strange problem with flatulence, of which, and I said, it just wouldn't work. But everybody who listened to that show thought it was absolutely wonderful. Fran was telling the story of how she went down in the Titanic, and there are some requirements to go in the submergible or the submarine in order to go down there. One of them is claustrophobia. The other one is you can't have flatulent problems. And
excessive flatulence. That was the key.
Yeah. And then what's the third one? There's a third one.
Well, the first one was high blood pressure, which wasn't a problem. The second one was the claustrophobia, where when you're down there 2.5 miles, I was like, well, what happened? And they go, well, then if you panic, we have to shoot you with a dart gun. I'm like, a dart gun? And they said, yeah, we can have you panic. And that's when I said, what's the third one? They said excessive flatulence, so I was scared to ask excessive. So that's when I looked it up and found out on the web that the average person farts 18 times a day. So, of course, I started counting. And when I got to 12 and then fell asleep, I figured I was safe, unless there was 6 more in my sleep I didn't know about. And so I was like, and I started thinking, I asked the person, well, what happens? I mean, if you do fart too much in the submersible, they say, oh, it's pure oxygen. You could blow up the submarine. I'm like, oh, Lord, can you imagine going out, headline, reading Fast Talker blows up Titanic with her ass? I'm like, no, that is just not a good way to go out. So,
no, it's not. No, it's not. And by the way, that's a word that is funny, even though it's not. And of course, I guess we have George Carlin to thank for it to a certain extent. The word fart. I mean, I don't care how and what context it's used in. It's funny.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you look at it, and it maybe because it almost sounds like the sound, but like little kids, whether you teach them or not, they laugh. Yeah. And I think every boy, whether his mother says, what mother actually says, come on, fart on command. But you know what I mean? Like the boys do it, they find it funny, and you're like, whatever. I didn't teach them that. I got to tell you, this one time I was performing in Vegas, and we were in the not the green room, in the cafeteria, before I had to go on. And he was 3 years old at the time. But he was very verbal because I didn't want to teach him like baby words, right? So, for example, prior to coming down, we were in the elevator, and my son had this thing about different pacifiers. So he would have like one and then a spare one. And, so here he is in the elevator. I'm holding his hand. He's got a pacifier in his mouth, and he's sucking away on it, holding it with his hand. And a man gets in the elevator. He goes, oh, how cute. He goes, what does he call his pacifier? And my son, my son's just sucking away in the back. And I go, oh, he calls it a pacifier. He goes, no, what do you call it? What does he call it? Bobo? What is that? I said, no, he calls it a pacifier. And the guy goes, no, I know what it is. What does your son call it? My son, perfect timing, takes it out, looks up at the guy and goes, pacifier, and then puts it right back in his mouth. And I was like, perfect sense, perfect timing. Perfect. And then we're in the dining room, and for whatever reason, sometimes people are talking, it's very noisy, and all of a sudden there's a lull in the sound.
Yes.
And right at the lull, my son let out the biggest fart. And so everybody turns around. He's 3 years old. Everybody turns around. Right. You can tell where it comes from. He's sitting like up in the the stool, and everybody's looking at him. And he points to me. He goes, "I'm her son." And I was like, great. My 3-year-old just got me in front of like 500 people in a cafeteria.
Yeah, I have a story about my great grandmother, who, and everybody has a story about grandma sitting in the chair and letting go every once in a while, because people get to a certain age when they get old and they make no excuses for letting loose. And Tubby,
no, they don't care.
Yeah, Tubby, my late uncle Tubby Boots, he passed gas all the time because of his diet and everything else. I mean, he was 385 pounds. But one time it's a family function. I think it was the 4th of July. Everybody in the family, we're up in Connecticut on the shore in Old Lyme. We're having a party, and there's even neighbors coming in. And Grandma decides she's going to get up and walk across the room. And as she does, she lets it out like it's a backfire coming out of a car all the way across the room. all the way across the room, and my dad and his two brothers look around and said, "No, she's their mother," and it's like, and it was
the
like,
same thing. It's like nobody wants to take credit.
Yeah.
Oh, and
yeah.
by the way, before we go any further, happy
Yes, ma'am.
birthday.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I was telling somebody who called me late this afternoon, they said, well, how does it feel to be 64 years old? And I said, I don't know. I've never been 64 before. I do remember what my father was like when he was 64. He was retired and playing golf all the time, but I don't know what. And you know what, Fran? I don't think in our business 64 means anything anymore.
I think in any business, in any thing, it shouldn't mean anything. I always say I'm 37 till I'm 97 and sticking to it. And people are always like, you say 37. Why don't you say, like your real age? You can't be 37 forever. I said, you know what? Age is just a biological number. And whatever age you hear yourself say is the age that you actually feel. And I said, it's just like if somebody's upset about something and they keep talking about it, then they constantly stay in that state of being upset because you're reminding yourself of it. So, and it has nothing to do with, got to be proud of your age, not proud of your age. It has nothing to do with that. But I find that certain people, when they say, 80, I can't do those things I did anymore when I was 50 or whatever. And I'm like, listen, Jack LaLanne, for God's sakes, was moving, both stuff with his teeth, when he was like 70 years old. So, it all depends on the type of lifestyle, the type of mentality you want to do. So I always just, keep that. So like when you said, I don't know what it feels like to be 64. All I know is I'm enjoying myself and I'm whatever age I am,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We're talking to Fran Capo, writer, entertainer, comedian, adventurer, married woman, and so many other wonderful things that she does. And she's one of my dearest friends in the whole world. All right, let's get into the ultimate guide of getting yourself on television, radio, and in print. And before we get to that, Fran, and I know that in order to be successful, even after reading this book, you need to do your homework. You need to do the work that this book says you need to go out and do. You need to sit down and write the press releases. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. If I had the money, and I do not, but if I had the money, I would hire you to do my marketing for me because you're a genius at this, and I can't think of anybody who is more adept and equipped to talk about how to get yourself on television and radio. 4,500 television shows, 450 radio shows, not to mention all the articles that you've been in and written. Anybody can give anybody the insight as to where to go, what to do, and how to get there. It's Fran Capo. So the bottom line to me is no matter what you're going to do in life, you've got to put in the work. And do you find that that's what motivates people not to get involved in the business or that holds them back in life? They're not even willing to take a couple of steps forward to put themselves where they want to be?
Well, I think what happens is it's not so much necessarily that people aren't willing to work. Well, let me take that back. It depends on the generation. And I hate to, stereotype, but the millennial generation, for example, a lot of them feel that things should just come to them. Like, hey, I should be able to make the same salary you're making, because I graduated college. And, or I'm working at my dad's company. Why aren't I the vice president? Whereas when Steve worked at his father's company, when he had a trucking business at one point, his dad made him work on the docks and work his way up. He said, if you're going to run a business, you need to know every aspect of it. You need to know what each employee, what they feel like when they're working. How does this work? Almost like when, they do that TV show, Undercover Boss,
right?
And they go in there and then they're like, oh, whoa, this is what it's like, or this is what they're facing and stuff. And so the thing is, you have to do the work, but I find that if people at least are, told, listen, you have to write a press kit. But if you just say you have to write a press kit and people don't know even where to begin, that they get frustrated because they first have to do the research and then they have to do it. They have to put the time, the effort in. Now, yeah, you can go out, you could hire somebody, which, you know, if everybody has the money, they could do it. But when people are starting a business, they don't necessarily have the money to do it. And quite frankly, even if you hire someone, you should know something about what they're doing to know whether they're doing a good job.
Right.
I mean, how do you know somebody's doing a good job? And I'm not saying, like, if you hired a plumber, you have to know all the pipes and everything. You know, you get recommendations for plumbers. But if you see that, you know, check what the guy's doing and you see that, you know, well, I don't know, that pipe looks like it's leaking still and he's the plumber, you know. So what I say is people do sometimes, they get lazy. They want it to be like, I want to make money instantly. Well, yeah, we'd all like to do that. You know, go out, buy the lottery ticket and, you know, yeah, which is fine because you got to play to be able to win. But, you know, at the same time, you have to put the time and effort in it. Nothing is, you know, who was it? Billy Crystal, you know, 20 years to become an overnight success.
Right. And look at some of the disappointments he had getting bumped off of Saturday Night Live. Well, here's another illustration. How long did it take you, Fran, as a comic before you really made a dime at being a stand-up comic?
Well, actually, I think I'm a little bit of a different case because I made money the very first time I got on stage because I won a contest. And the prize was to perform, but at the end of the night, I got $10. And boy, was I excited to get $10 to be on stage, you know, when I knew that, you know, comics didn't. But to do it, oh, gosh. For years, you know, in the beginning, you go to open mic nights to catch a rising star, and then you'd go to the improv, and you go around to these places, and then, you know, oh, you got a spot on a Saturday. You made $5, you know. Yeah. Okay, but you know, you had to drive into the city. You had to wait there for 5 hours. You had to wait, you know, till there were 2 drunks left in the corner, you know, and performing. But when you have a passion for something and you love it, you do that. And that's why I always came up with like different ways that I could do it. Well, if I work at a radio station part-time and then I, you know, run a comedy show on the weekends and then I do stand-up here, you know, so I was always thinking at war, like if I'm going to bungee cord jump, how can I make money bungee cord jump? What if I bungee cord jump and write a book as I'm coming down or whatever, you know, whatever kind of marketing thing I would think of. Because I was like, how do I incorporate what I love to do with making money? And that's always, because to me, if you love what you do, then you get creative and then you figure out a way to make money and then you have the passion to keep going until you make a living off of it.
Let's talk about some of the basic steps. We're just going to go over some of the chapters here and some of the things. And I want everybody to get out there and buy this book. It's only $19.95. The Ultimate Guide of Getting Yourself on Television, Radio, and in Print. And it's also the companion to the book that we had and we were talking about earlier, The Humor Approach, Putting Your Funny Side Up, which I think is absolutely wonderful for anybody who's a corporate executive. As I said on Facebook, anywhere from the classroom to the boardroom, this is a book you should get. It's also $19.95, and you get it on Fran's website, francapo.com. Fran, let's talk about some of the things. You talk about publicity versus advertising. Do people understand the difference between publicity and advertising?
Well, initially, I think people hear it and then they go, oh, yeah, well, you're just getting yourself on this. But, I mean, you know, the basic difference is like when you're advertising something, you're paying for it to be on, you know, on TV, radio, wherever you happen to be. When people advertise, the benefit that you have is that you control it in the sense that you've purchased a space. You know, you meet with the guidelines of that particular, media that they have. You control how big the ad will be. Is it going to be a quarter of a page, a full page? Is it going to be, you know, have a picture with it? And, you know, the printed ads that you have, you know, you're trying to catch someone's attention in a small period of time. You know, you're going to a magazine, you quickly want them to be able to see your ad, go, wow, that's interesting. What is that? So you have to figure out a way to do that. But you're in control of that. When you're doing publicity, the difference is you're not paying for it. But at the same time, it's in a way, if you're getting publicity and it's positive, it's third-party endorsement because people know, hey, you're advertising. Of course you're going to say the product's good. I mean, why would you be paying to say, listen, I got this product, but it really sucks and I don't want, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But if you get publicity, you're getting someone saying, hey, I saw this show, and this show is great. You need to go down there. It's got 5 stars. Or, I know this performer, the show is going to be, and, then it becomes the recommendations of other people. And the difference is there's thousands of research dollars that usually go into, finding the target market and the audience and the proper placement. Should it be full edge, back ad, should it be in which magazine do you spend your money in? Should it be in the Wall Street Journal or in the Inquirer? And, it's a lot of money for a company that's starting up. So if you could figure out a way to get publicity, which is free advertising, and, then you're way ahead of the game. And, just to give you some examples, like the Washington Post, put a full-page ad in the Washington Post, a one-time ad cost $100,000. The LA Times is $70,000, whereas a local newspaper is like $1,000. Which still, when you think about it, if you even put 4 ads out, I mean, if that person's reading the paper that particular day. But if you're doing it, if you're getting publicity and you happen to be on the cover of the entertainment section, like when I was on the cover of the Huffington Post, thousands of people saw it. And I got a lot of, calls or work or, different things from that. And that's another thing when you think of online versus, regular print, because that magazine comes out, for that month or for that day. Whereas online, it lives in the archives. So, but yet there is something cool about holding a physical book in your hand and holding a physical magazine in your hand. So, anyway, those are some of the basic differences.
What about
What
about social media now, as far as the different platforms? I saw something on 60 Minutes the other night that talked about these young millennials who are using social media to advertise products, and these companies are paying them millions of dollars to do it for these little 20-second ads that are on there. What about using social media to advertise yourself in that way, to get your name out there besides the usual ways of getting your name out there? What about using, I don't know, Instagram and some of these other places?
Well, the thing is, like, for example, first it used to be MySpace. That was the big thing at one point. And then Facebook took over, from MySpace. Each social media thing has a different type of audience. The reason a lot of kids don't like using Twitter is because their parents use Twitter. But Twitter is used mainly for media. Like, the media watches Twitter a lot. So if, right now, look at all the political campaigns that are using Twitter. Or even when you turn on any television, they're like, give us your comments, tweet us at, and then it gives you, the person's hashtag.
Right.
But as far as advertising and social media for yourself or building your brand, for example, and I'm not saying it's not big anymore, but it hit a peak and now it's more on the downward spiral, is Viners, 6-second videos. The Viners that became big would get crazy amounts of money just to have the product shown within that 6-second clip. And now Instagram and Snapchat are real big because they have these things. And what's the other one? Not Amazon. Google now has like the storyline that Snapchat does, with stuff. And the whole thing is, if you build a following, and some of these kids who are followings, it's not like they're, movie stars or actors. They just do something that's very real that people can relate to. They like the way they talk. They build a following, and advertisers say, hey, who's these kids following? Oh, well, this person has 1 million followers in the age range. The target market that we want to get our product across is this YouTuber. I mean, they have YouTube conventions once a year. These people are like rock stars. You get the YouTuber that everybody's following, and you get him in, he's typing in an Apple computer instead of a PC or whatever. They're willing to pay for that. So social media is huge in the way. And NFL, the Super Bowl, has Pepsi for the first time a couple of years ago did not do their commercial on traditional TV. They did it on internet. They did the commercial internet. Commercials that I've gotten hired for when I did the Volkswagen Jetta, which of course not a great thing to say right now because the Volkswagen was the whole thing, but when I did the Volkswagen Jetta, it was an internet commercial. And I got, paid my, my scale, my union wages and whatever else, I negotiated. And it was a full blown out production as if it was on TV. I mean, we had a cast and crew of about 30 people, 3 camera shoots. It was in a car, so we had the moving camera, we had makeup, we had a trailer, we had everything you would have almost on a full movie set, but for an internet commercial. And that is the trend. It's an excellent way to get you to build up your own thing without having to rely on an agent.
Does the fact that you live in New York and or if you lived in L.A. help contribute to the fact of all the hard work that you've done, that if you lived in like Orlando, Florida, where I used to live, or where I am now, or, does it help location where you are?
Well, with social media, no, it doesn't make a difference because there are a lot of those kids that are famous and it doesn't matter where they come from because you're reaching out through the internet and that's, you're reaching a totally different type of audience. The way where it matters is if you're doing traditional stuff where you're, where the companies are based, like, California Astoria Studios, or where, different media outlets are based in Manhattan, in New York City, in LA, in Chicago, and where that. So that way, if you're auditioning for something, there's a lot of casting agents and people there. So, you get called in, you go there. And so in that aspect, but to say that you can't become somebody because you live somewhere else, no, that's, that's not the case. Nothing's impossible.
We got about 3 minutes left, Fran.
Already.
Yes. We're talking to Fran Capo, who is, she's just one of the greatest ladies in the world. She's a writer, ultimate guide of getting yourself on television, radio, and in print. The humor approach, putting your funny side up, as well as Hopeville, the City of Light, which is a fabulous book that I recommend to everybody and anybody. Talk quickly about what one needs to put together for a press kit, because some people spend a lot of money, or it's not necessarily needed at first to put together your first press kit.
Well, it's funny because right now, where I used to do a printed press kit, a lot of people are doing the digital press kits now.
Right.
But you still kind of need, your headshot in there. You need a bio of, a bio is a biography basically of, what you, what you did, a short bio. I actually have 5 different bios. One, I have my overall bio, which gives like a paragraph on each thing. Then I have a bio that's specific for just comedy, one that's specific just for motivational speaking. And when you go to my website, francapo.com, and you go to the different pages, you see the bios are different for each, for each area. But also going into the press kit, you have different articles. You can scan them in, different things that were written about you, some testimonial letters. Although, like I said, on my website, I have a section that's just more testimonials. You have cover letters, previous publicity, and if you have clips, that you have either on YouTube that you could send somebody, video clips, DVDs, audio, CDs, and of course you always need to have a business card. But again, like I said, everything could be electronic. What a lot of people do is now, how people used to collect business cards. Now a lot of times when somebody's like, oh, I don't have my business card, I will literally I have a photo of my business card in my phone. And if somebody says, oh, do you have a card? And I'm like, give me your phone number. I'll just text you or email you my card. And the reason that's good is it's twofold, because now you're also getting their phone number. They have an image of your card. If they ever want to call you, they don't have to worry about having your card on you, because they've already got it, unless you deleted it, of course, stored in their phones. So there's all these little tricks.
Fran, the hour has gone by.
Again, and I'm the fast talker, and it still goes by with us not finishing.
Exactly, but I love you dearly, and thank you so much for joining us here on The Express. It's Fran Capo, ladies and gentlemen, one of the funniest, greatest ladies that God ever put in my life and on this earth. And go out and get her book, please, because and you go to francapo.com and you learn so much about this wonderful, wonderful, adventurous young lady. And I wish you and Steve all the happiness in the world. I will call you in a couple of days, and we'll talk. We'll talk.
And you will talk of what? You can see if I'm still married? No.
Yeah, we'll see if you're still married. But thank you so much, Fran, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And that concludes another hour here of The Express. And for those of you who want to keep in touch with me, go to facebook.com for Gary Allen, ALAN. Also go to youtube.com for Gary Allen, The Express interviews. Thursday night at 7 p.m. This program will repeat itself on diversitybroadcastnetwork.com, as well as progressivevoices.com. You can hear me there all over the place. And if you want to hear all the great shows here on TMV Cafe, go to tunein.com and just register, and you'll be able to plug us in at any time you want. And until next week, folks, and we have a great show coming in for you next week. I will not be on election night because I'm going to be out covering the campaign. And I'm sure everybody's going to be interested in the campaign anyway. But until next week, please take care of yourselves and each other.
You've been listening to The Express with Gary Allen. Join us here every Tuesday night at 10 for more captivating talk with Gary Allen. See you next time on The Express.